guys, welcome back to Halfway to Halloween. It's me, Ashley, and I am here to interview and have a good panel with the amazing Samm Todd from Trick or Treat. So let's everyone welcome Samm Todd.
Hey, hello.
Hi.
Hi. I love that intro. It's like got me jumping around and like
Dancing.
Yeah, exactly.
Good. Well, how are you doing? How are things?
Oh, I'm doing great. Thanks. How are you doing? It's a hot day here in New York City where I'm located, so it's nice and steamy. So I have my grandfather's old polka dotted shirt on, and I'm ready to get into this panel, and I'm happy to be here.
All right. Well, we're happy to have you. Thank you for taking time out of your weekend to join us. So as most of your fans know and everyone watching, you played Rhonda in Trick or Treat, and you were like 14 around then, right?
Yeah.
So what was the auditioning like for that? Like, do you remember your auditioning process and what that was?
I do. Yes. It's makes me laugh a little bit because the thing that really stands out to me too is that I was wearing another article of clothing of my grandfather's to the audition. I don't know what it is, this running theme. I don't always wear old man clothes, but I guess it just really works for me at times. No, I was wearing like I was super nervous. It was my first professional audition. Like I had just gotten into acting and had just gotten an agent, and I just was very nervous. So the audition itself was like the first rounds and stuff. I think that I got really lucky. The casting director had a sort of kinship for me. It almost seemed like I reminded him of like a relative or something. And so they were really warm and inviting, but also the whole scene and audition called for me to, it was that scene where I'm supposed to be in the rock quarry crying and panicking, and so it really worked out in my favor because I was naturally very scared. So it all sort of came together that they chose a really opportune scene for me in that moment. And then I feel like I got really lucky. Like the casting people and stuff really supported me, so that by the time I met Michael Dougherty, they were like, she's really great. She's got really good energy. And then again, the nerves took over, and I think I naturally started crying and having a bit of a panic attack. So it just all worked out in my favor. Yeah.
Well, that's great. So did you ever think that Trick or Treat would have become such the cult classic that it is now?
No way. I'm amazed, and I love it. I have to say, the fans of Trick or Treat are the best. Everybody's like super warm and nice and happy, which is amazing because it's like a movie about children being killed, but it strikes such a nerve, and I feel just amazed at like how much it's resonated for people over the years, and I just love it. I've met people that say they watch it every year, like it's like a family film that they just watch with their loved ones every year, and I feel really honored to be a part of that. But at the time, no, I was pretty excited to be like in a Warner Brothers feature, and then we found out that it wasn't going to be released in theaters, so I was like, oh, this will probably die, and it'll be this like fun little thing that I can tell people at parties that they won't believe or something. So, but the fact that it's really grown into this whole thing that people love and are still talking about today is amazing. I'm so happy to be here. It's awesome. So,
well, great.
Yeah.
So if we could switch it up, if you could be in any other horror film besides Trick or Treat, which would it be and why?
Oh God, that's a good question. Well, I think, I actually just watched this horror movie Alone, which is like set in the Pacific Northwest and is mind-bogglingly terrifying because the film Trick or Treat was filmed in Vancouver. I grew up there, and my mom lives in Seattle, and the Pacific Northwest has this like certain air about it that's really bizarre and crazy. But I think it would have been, it just looks like it would have been really fun to be in a film like that, where like the main character who's really featured a lot gets to fight back more. It's really like, I don't want to ruin it for anybody, but that to me looked like it would have been like a really enjoyable time to have these really horrific moments that are very intense, where you're crying and crawling and screaming and yelling, but then also to sort of get all that pent up aggression that I felt I inevitably had after being told, do it again. Not right, do it again, over and over again. I get to pummel somebody with my fist or something a little bit. So that would be really fun. And it's also, it would be, I don't know, I thought that film was done really just so well, just about the ways in which they use pauses and silence, which I thought was really eerie. And so I obviously don't stop talking. I have a challenging time with silence. So I think it would be really cool to be in a film where like that's heavily emphasized, but you have a bunch of people around. It just seems like it would be a lot of fun. Yeah.
That's awesome. So I heard that you have now taken a step into comedy and you're doing some stand-up now.
Oh yeah. I'm like, my comedy is like, my comedy is not very good. It's mostly me laughing at myself like this, It's me self-editorializing and commenting on my own material most of the time. But yes, I am fortunate to be in like a city where there's like the best comedians and best access to comedy in the world. And so I feel really privileged that like I've had a lot of teachers along the way. With the pandemic, naturally things have like organically sort of slowed, but I'm always looking for ways to, increase the pain in my own life so that I can use it as material later. So like this, but my comedy is not very good. Basically, it's the long and short of it. I still have a lot of work to do. So it's mostly this. It's just like nervous laughter and people being confused and slightly sad. It's most of the time.
So everybody, basically. It's what we all kind of go through in our own heads.
Yeah, exactly. I have to say, though, is that everybody should try it. I'm a big advocate for, like, if you're just, struggling with your own self-esteem, just go and do an open mic night because it can get lower. You know what I mean? Like, the bar can always get lower. No, but in seriousness, it's really fun. And, yeah, I have a lot of, I went to theater school here in the city and stuff like that. So, like, I have a lot of friends that are now in the industry, much more successful and better adjusted than I am. And so lots of help and support in that area. But, yes, been very fun.
What initially drew you to comedy from acting? Like, did you want to do a mixture of both together? Did you kind of just want to be on one side or the other?
Yeah, I think I have like for me, a bubbly personality. Like I'm a personable person, for many years, well into my early 20s, people thought I looked without makeup like I was like 12 years old, so I looked like a child. So like the idea of me playing like, like a Wonder Woman or something, it's like really sweet. I'm honored, but I don't think that it's gonna happen for me anytime soon. So, but I've always been fascinated by comedians and like have really drawn and been and navigated towards them as a child. So like obviously like the big ones, Jim Carrey and Al Franken was like my jam when I was a kid. But just this idea of like that I think the thing that's amazing about acting is that like in life, everything is sort of on a similar plane, like things can be going really well, like in horror films, and then it can get terribly wrong. What I'm trying to say is like, it's great to know like the fluidity of various emotions, but I find more of a kinship with comedy personally. But always good to know, in horror films, it can't just all be like death and destruction. There's got to be a little comedic break for the audience at a certain point, as people know of in Trick or Treat as well. Lots of good comedic timing there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So John says, do you think Rhonda knew that the other kids were going to be killed, or that it was another prank when she didn't let them in the elevator?
Whoa, that's a good question. I think that Rhonda felt as though if I'm like thinking about it now from Rhonda's perspective, I think that she knew that they were going to be killed. But it was sort of like, you did this to me and you disrespected the traditions of Halloween. And, Rhonda's kind of no nonsense, She's not giggly and bubbly. She is like, listen, there are rules here. And if you break them, I'll leave you in the quarry, So I think that it's just the matter of fact. I always felt that like she, knew and believed in the tenets of Halloween. And that's why, like, as she's leaving, she has sort of that moment with Sam and, she knows what's going on. But, you bury yourself.
Yeah.
I don't even know that coming out of my mouth.
So we have a question from Jay, and it's asking, what are the types of roles that you look forward to?
Types of roles that I look forward to. Oh man. Well, these days I haven't done much acting in the last few years, but I think that anything that really excites me as a role is something that enables me to have a bit of a challenge and also tap into like my natural dispositions as a person and an actress. Sort of like what I said before is that like I find that I have like this good energy and work well with people, but it's also good for me to practice more serious characters and roles and things like that that don't necessarily come naturally to me. As I mentioned before, that sort of wanting to do the alone thing is like having to do a lot of emphasis on silence and small mannerisms that for me, especially after going to theater school, theater is big. You have to be loud and you have to make yourself known and be heard. And film is so much more subtle and quiet. And so any opportunity to sort of do that more, I think would be a benefit for me.
So going into theater school and having that be such a big part of your life, what are 3 plays or film or any kind of a production or monologues or anything that stand out to you that help maybe guide you into your career to doing what you're doing?
Oh. So, like, the first thing that really comes to mind is this play by Paul Zindel. It's called The Effect of Gamma Rays on Man on the Moon Marigolds. It's beautiful and brilliant. It was on Broadway, I think in the 70s or something. It's just fantastic. And I read that play, like, religiously. When I think I discovered it, my mother was also an actor, so my mother was constantly giving me like things to look at and things to read. And there was in the play, there's like a young girl who is struggling with like her own, she's about 15. She's like the middle daughter, and she's just struggling with like her own identity in this house with a mother who's mentally ill and a sister who's like really a bookworm. And she's trying to find her way in relation to like her own sexuality and stuff. Anyways, and I just always thought that it would be like such a amazing experience to get to play something like that, where it is really like a young girl who may have her own issues internally and is like struggling with friendships and a sense of belonging that I definitely had around that age, 11 and 12, from, I had just sort of like, as seems to happen, like run into issues with friends and people at school and stuff like that. But naturally, like I said, I have sort of a more personable, demeanor and get along relatively well with people. And so I felt this internal kinship to that character. And then being able to play Rhonda, I've talked about this in other panels and stuff, like Michael Dougherty used to have me in the early table reads of the movie. used to have me like like make my own plans and stuff for lunch. I couldn't associate with the rest of the cast for lunch. He just didn't want me being too close. He wanted me to know what it felt like to be rejected and left. And so, but that play really stands out to me. And then I just, I think though that there's so much amazing material and access to amazing material. And I think that's like the greatest thing about the internet. You know, you can just find things out of nowhere. And so I really encourage people to like explore what feels like maybe like a shadow or internal part of them that they don't want to look at. And there's definitely like a piece of art that taps into that, whether it be literature or a play or a film or something.
Yeah. So to go right into that, we had a question pop up. Jay, it says, do you feel a live theater background leads to horror film work? Because many horror stars have that background.
I definitely think that it really helps with, as I mentioned before, like sort of being able to be loud and seen and having very clear actions and choices for behavior. You know, the thing that I really always valued that, again, like my mother always drilled into me too, is that nobody takes an action in a play unless it's intentional. There's a purpose for doing anything, whether it's picking up a cigarette, moving a hand, touching a book. There's some sort of reason for doing every behavior. And so I think that sort of even early training as a teenager and the fact that my mother was a longtime theater actress really contributed to like the ability to play it big. And I do remember that as well in my auditions for Trick or Treat. You know, I didn't hear a lot of people in there when I was waiting outside to audition, waiting out of the room. But when I went in there, I mean, I screamed at the top of my lungs, you know, like they can always turn it down, but it's a lot harder to get people to sort of come out of their shell a bit more. So definitely the answer is yes. The long and short of it is yes.
No, but it's great to hear, you know, the breakdown of why your yes was yes. Yeah. So we have another question. Who are some of your comedy influences?
Well, like I said, Al Franken was, I don't know what it was about Al Franken, but he had this film that he did of a spin-off character that he had on SNL called Stuart Smalley Saves His Family. And my mother, I think, bought it at like a flea market, that VHS, and then just like put it on one day to get me to stop trying to perform, you know, constantly in front of her. And I became obsessed with that film. So then anything that Al Franken did and these characters that Al Franken was doing, I just was like, who is this dude? This is absolutely amazing. So he was definitely an early influence for me. And also, you know, Jim Carrey, just because of his outlandish demeanor. He's also Canadian. Go Canada. Okay. Rock on. I don't know. My dad is always like, anytime you have the ability to talk about Canada, say rock on. So I'm just, this one's for you, Dad. Still trying to get his love approval, you know? Okay, anyways, but these like big players who made big, bold decisions, and you know, Chris Farley. There's so many others, but my brain is sort of blanking at the moment. There's definitely female comedians that I also like, but I can't seem to think of anybody. But yeah, those were always the big ones, just because I love the fact that like if they were going to commit to something, they fully committed, and that was always sort of the lesson. If you're going to do something, just do it fully, because you have sometimes one opportunity to do it, so just do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what was it like working with Michael Dougherty and that whole experience with him?
He is the best. I don't, you know, I haven't talked to Michael. The last I talked to him was like probably like 2014 or something. We were both in LA at the same time. And, but I don't know what it is. I just have such like an affection and adoration for him. I think that like he's a brilliant writer and director, and the fact that like his directorial debut was this baby that he had been working on for so long, and that he took on some pretty big things. He worked with pets, and he worked with kids, like it's the most unruly people to deal with. And he was always, the thing with Michael is that like if he was on set, he was there to work, and he had been there for most of the night, and like he just was a professional the whole way. And that's what I really remember is too, again, like at the time I'm 14, so I'm with other teenagers. We're all just like, woo, no school, and
Right.
had to be really told like, this is a place of business for everybody that's here, including you. And like, this is our time as well. So treat it like a job, be professional and courteous and kind. And that's what I really saw from him. And yeah, it was great. But he really, he let me have it. There were moments that I was just like so confused. There's this one where I'm like, it's that scene, I'm covering my ears and I'm crying. And I just remember him at this one point, we had done it like several times, and he just screamed at me from the background. He was like, do it like you did that one time before. I was like, I have no idea what you're talking about. I was so lost. And then he said something similar again when we were in like taping and doing voiceover work for some of the material of the film later on. He was like, can you do it like you did on that day? Do you remember it was like the weather, and just do it like that? I don't even know. I can barely remember my name, so I just don't even know what this is being referenced to. But he was really great. It was really wonderful to work with him. Yeah.
So what is your next step? Your next try to for something or to do it big, like you say?
Oh, well, I think at the moment what I've been doing here is like I've had sort of a mellow, normal, calm existence, which has been pretty nice. And in this time of COVID, when everything has slowed down, it's really been nice to like stop running towards something so heavily and just like enjoy the gifts that exist today. So at the moment, I'm not sure what's next. I feel like the world, or at least my relation to it, has been really wonderful. Like the more open I remain, sort of doorways open, answers come. I don't have to do as much as I think I have to do all the time. I think that's sort of the irony, but I definitely have to do something, but I don't have any concrete plan and no real idea, but I'm open. If anybody has any ideas or suggestions, throw them my way, I'll join, whatever. Screw it. Let's go.
During COVID, how did you find ways to get your creative outlets out of you so that you weren't just locked in at all? Was it going more towards comedy, or were you just trying to find other outlets for your relief of your creative built up juices that are in there?
Well, my poor friends and family, I think a lot of those creative juices sometimes are just like neurotic, sort of like obsessive behavior. So I think a lot of it just got spewed in whatever direction would listen. But yeah, I think like in COVID, sort of like I said, it became about like slowing down a bit more and like learning to sit still and like acknowledge, I have, as probably others do too, like all these nervous tics, right? So like I touch my nose, I touch my hair, I move my hands, I laugh all the time. See, and it's like a breath or something. It's like part of my breathing. And I just had like friends and loved ones that were like, maybe it would be a good time to like learn how to meditate, learn how to like sit still, learn how to notice these little things that also come out when I'm nervous in an audition. And they don't sit as well as I think they did, or as they probably did when I was 14. You know,
Right.
at this age, just being like, ha 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 ha. You know, so I just it really gave me like an opportunity to like slow down and sort of get more internal rather than doing anything external during that time. But now it's ramping up, so you know, gotta find a new direction for those things as the world reopens. Yeah.
So Jimmy wants to know if you can talk about your time with Scares That Care weekend.
Yes. Scares That Care weekend was, God, it feels like it was like yesterday or something, but it was a few months ago. And it's just a wonderful charity and a wonderful function that I'm so happy that it was able to be put on, even though COVID was happening. It was this outdoor drive-in movie theater, and there were a bunch of, you know, events and games. And again, I just have to say, like, there is something about the horror community. It's horror. It's like so gory and dark and seedy, but the people who really love horror and come to these things are the nicest people. It's like, so I'm always like, gosh, you have this like Freddy Krueger mask on and you're covered in plain blood, but you just are saying the sweetest thing. So I just feel, but Scares That Care weekend, it was a really wonderful time, and it's a great weekend. I highly recommend that like people look into it and donate, and all of the proceeds that I was there like signing autographs and pictures and stuff like that, and everything that I made just went to the charity itself. Don't feel that it's really like my place to go to a charity event and charge and take funds, but yeah, I wish I could talk more about it. For some reason, my brain is sort of like short-circuiting in this particular moment, but all I can say is that it was a really great weekend, and it's just really nice to see, like, again, this horror community of like people coming out to watch these movies about like people killing other people, and then they're supporting a great cause for sick children, and you know, it's just really wonderful. So yeah, it was really fun.
That's great. We, my husband and I, are haunt owners, and we run a haunt, and we did Scare to Be Aware for Autism event at our haunt, and we raised funds and went to our local schools and stuff to help out with that. So we try to match up with some of that. And you're right. The people that you meet that come out, you know, horror fans, they're dressed up, they're covered in blood. They want all of that blood, guts, and gore, but they're the nicest people, and they're just so amazing.
Yeah.
My mom always told me it's because they get their aggressive, they're watching the movies and then like living in the fantasy of the movie, and then all their demons are gone at that point, so they can just go around and be normal people.
I love it. I'll take it. It's the best. It's like, yeah, I'm always shocked and amazed at just how gentle and warm everybody is. And never had a bad experience at any of those. I know. I see this trick or treat question.
Yeah, with all the rumors of trick or treat too that keep popping up, I know I'd like to see more of Rhonda's character. Would you like to be a part of it if and when it happens? And also, where would you like to see the Rhonda character go? Great
question. First of all, yes. Okay. I would love to be a part of it. I have big plans for Rhonda. Okay, it's time for Rhonda to meet Samm, her internal demon character. I really want Rhonda to have, you know, more of like a response. She probably won't. Poor, sweet, gentle little thing. She's just, she's like one of those horror convention people who, like, you know, people may judge at face value, or like judge basically what they don't understand and have a reaction to what they don't get. But like internally, it's just sensitive and sweet and quiet and kind, you know? But yes, I would love, I feel like I've been hearing about Trick or Treat 2 rumors popping up for like 6 years now. So, you know, I don't know really what anyone can do at this point. It's not like I can be like, go be on the internet and make this happen for me. But go be on the internet and make this happen for me. No, I think it's about time. Let's see what happens in their way. And I would love to see, I would love to see too, just Rhonda like continuing to respect and abide by the traditions and, standing by her guns or sort of being like a confidant or friend with Samm. I feel like they're friends. I feel like, they've got like this little secret thing going on.
Yeah. So have you ever tried your hand at music? It seems like an outlet that a lot of actors do feed into those creative juices, or painting of those sorts either?
Well, I have a lot of paintings in my home. None of them are mine because I'm a horrible painter. I know how to draw a bird flying away, which is a elongated M for those of you who don't know. And but drawing, no, I'm so bad at drawing. I took a drawing course in college because I was like, oh, easy intro to drawing, fun, creative arts thing. It'll just be like an easy elective. I got a D, so just like I failed almost miserably. It brought my whole GPA down. So I was like, it's so stupid. The singing thing too. I dabbled. I think in college, I wanted to showcase that I had like all of these skills and I could be this cool artsy New York whatever I was trying to do at the time. But again, it's not very good. So it just doesn't really pan out. But yeah, I definitely know a lot of people who have like, their hand in many ventures and skills and abilities, and I'm just not that interesting. And I just don't have that thing. But yeah.
So besides Trick or Treat, what are your top 3 favorite horror movies?
Top 3 favorite horror movies. Oh my gosh. Okay. I'm going to think of names and I'm going to say the right name. So I just love Halloween. I love Jamie Lee Curtis, and it's just such a classic. It's the best. All right. And also, again, I just think that she's so good in it. It's just so believable and terrifying and weird. I really like, I don't know if this is like horror or more thriller, but I really liked A Quiet Place, even though after the fact, I talked to like a real skeptic friend of mine who was like, what if they cough or something? And like, it's unrealistic that like they wouldn't be killed, and because it's so quiet, but like there would just be at one point where something trips it up and they'd be dead. So then they kind of ruined the whole feel that I was in for a little bit. And then my other favorite horror film is The Cabin in the Woods. I really liked that as well. I thought that was like really weird, but also like funny and bizarre. But it was one of those things too that I felt that like the acting and direction was really fluid and natural, and I like things that there's like that mixture of comedy, horror, where like you're terrified legitimately one second, and then the next second you're sort of laughing, and then you're hesitant laughing, and then you're terrified again. So I think those would probably be my top.
Okay, so if you could venture into your favorite movie of all time, even if it's outside of horror, why would you jump into that movie, and which character would you play?
Oh, my favorite movie of all time is A Little Strange. I'm dating someone, and a close friend of his went to film school, and he works in the film industry. And I told him this movie, and he was like, why? Like he was like, I haven't heard about that film since film school. So like, But my favorite film for some reason is Harold and Maude. I don't know if anyone's seen it. I just love it so much. I love Fun Court. What's her name? Whatever. I'm like blanking on all my names, but I think like the thing I love about Harold and Maude, and it would be like so fun to play Maude, is again this like fluidity that comes with the character of just real, like, I just love seeing actors who seem to be having like a really great time and fun. And that whole film, she just seems to be like really invested in playing around a lot, exploring a lot. And it's such a weird movie and lovely and tender. And I highly recommend it. Everybody gives me this weird look and stuff when I say Harold and Maude, but don't knock it till you try it. It's great. Also, if you like dark humor, okay, Harold and Maude is the way to go. It's a little, it really starts off with a bang. But so I think that would be probably really fun to play. Cause again, just, it seems like a character where it's really all about, just having fun and playing, and like less about, it's not about looking a certain way. She does it. She's older in the film, and so yeah, that would probably be my choice. Gravitating towards old women in films. Yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna throw out a random question. If you were not an actress, comedian, anything in that industry, and you were more like corporate professional, what do you think you would be doing?
It's funny. My day job is in the corporate world, So if I'm like, what would I do? What I do is I'm an executive assistant. But it's like so I'm gonna go with that, or a president of a company. Let's do one or the other. Probably executive assistant is more likely. My boss, who is a president of something, is like most of the time, again, like deeply concerned at how much I laugh at things that aren't really funny. They're just words coming out of my mouth. So probably be in that position. But good question. I like that you fell on that one. That's pretty great.
So we do have one last question, and it says that you seem to lean towards the dark comedy. Are there any plays you like for those reasons?
Oh, yes. Again, like there's so many great plays that also like focus on deep, dark dynamics of a family pattern. I'm really into like family dynamic stuff most of the time, but for some reason my brain is not working. No good, no mo. But there are really wonderful plays there's a great play that the name I like cannot think of for some reason, but I can think of the lead actor, who's an old family friend of my mother's. Reed Birney is the actor. He was in a play that won a Tony a few years ago on Broadway here in the city. And that play is fantastic. And it's also, too, about these like deep secrets in a family. But it has these really funny moments and also like very, very painful experiences that are being disclosed. But that's one I would highly recommend. So I would look up Reed Birney Tony, and then you'll find the play that is a mystery. It's a little surprise and game for you. God, I'm just so bad at this sometimes. I can't remember anything. But that's my suggestion.
Well, Sam, we want to thank you for taking time to come on to Halfway to Halloween and sharing our Halfway to Halloween party with us and giving us your time and giving us great stories. Stay tuned, everyone. We have more coming up for Halfway to Halloween. Again, if you have any other questions or whatever, feel free to leave them. We'll send them over to Sam. Thank you again, Sam, for coming on, and you guys have a wonderful day.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah.